Welcome to the Morning Walk with Murty Digital Stroll.
Yes, welcome in, everyone.
And before we extract today's legacy code, I just want to give a quiet thank you to Murty BVNS over on write.as, whose master content production workflow post really set this whole stroll in motion.
Oh, absolutely. It's a perfect spark for the journey we're taking today.
It really is. Because today we are looking at a system that basically solves, the ultimate creator burnout question.
Right.
How do you manage a dual language, multi-platform media ecosystem completely solo without, totally losing your mind?
Which is something so many people are struggling with right now.
Yeah.
And what we're looking at today is it's a living, breathing architectural blueprint.
Exactly. And just to give you, the listener, the proper framing here, let's establish the digital prism we'll be using. We aren't here to simply summarize a block of text.
No, not at all.
We are acting as curators. We're looking under the hood of Project Antirimi's workflow, specifically version 7.2. And I'll be approaching this as the strategic auditor. So I'll be focusing really intensely on the nuts and bolts, the mechanics of digital migration, tool automation, and, systemic efficiency.
And my lens for this Gurukul session is that of the wisdom seeker. So I'm looking at this through the philosophy of Gurukul 2.0. I really want to understand the human element here, the learning environment, and how the mentor of the Antirimi VA Academy fosters genuine connection without, being crushed by the technology itself.
Because the technology can absolutely crush you if you let it.
Oh, easily.
And the core secret we found in this workflow isn't about grinding harder. It's not about downloading a magic app that does everything for you. It's about treating the workflow as a biological organism.
Yes.
But to appreciate this current highly evolved version, we first have to look at the broken mechanics it was built to replace. The architect of Antirimi operates on a very strict foundational code.
Right. The rule of one.
Yeah. One source, one notebook, 2 language tracks, 0 redundant steps.
And that emphasis on the number one is doing incredibly heavy lifting in this system.
Sure.
If we look at older iterations of this workflow, the process was completely fractured.
Fractured how? Exactly.
Well, they would generate audio in one place, right? And then they'd open a completely separate, sourceless Notebook LM chat window just to write the blog posts or generate metadata.
Oh, I see. Which introduces massive friction.
Exactly.
Because opening a separate notebook is it's like taking a photocopy of a highly detailed map and then just erasing all the coordinates.
That's a great way to put it.
You have the general picture of what you want to talk about, but you've completely lost the mathematical ability to trace your way back to where you started. You lose the automatic attribution to the original source text.
Right. The digital umbilical cord is essentially severed at that point. And in those older systems, showing gratitude to the original creators became an afterthought.
Because you had to remember to do it manually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It became a manual chore that you had to remember to do at the very end of an exhausting process when you're already burned out. But in version 7.2, by confining the AI to a single, persistent notebook environment, gratitude becomes a structural guarantee.
It's baked in.
Yes,
Yeah.
It is baked into the baseline reality the AI operates within. It literally can't forget the source because it's trapped in the room with it.
I love that. And I look at this through the efficiency lens, right? Like modern manufacturing. Older content workflows look like old factory assembly lines. You have 20 different stations, parts are moving down a conveyor belt, and data naturally just falls off or gets corrupted between handoffs.
Yeah, you lose fidelity.
Exactly. But what the architect has built here is more like a modern high-end 3D printer. It uses a single spool of filament, the original source document, and it just extrudes it perfectly into multiple complex shapes without ever losing track of the material.
It's a beautiful metaphor.
But I do have to put my auditor hat on here and push back slightly on this utopian vision.
Okay, lay it on me.
When you're dealing with the absolute unpredictability of AI tools, is 0 redundant steps actually possible? AI hallucinates, it loses context, it gives you bad generations all the time.
And that is a very real vulnerability in any AI workflow.
Yeah.
But the brilliance of the 0 redundancy rule isn't some naive assumption that the AI will always be flawless.
Okay.
It's actually a structural defense mechanism. Because large language models struggle so much with cross-session memory, If you bounce between 5 different tools or chat windows, you are relying on the AI to retain highly specific context across all of them.
Which it is notoriously bad at doing.
Terrible at it. But by forcing the entire production into one notebook, you eliminate the need to constantly reprompt and recontextualize. You severely limit the AI's opportunity to hallucinate because this entire universe is constrained to that one single uploaded source.
Okay, that makes total sense. You aren't trusting the AI, you are boxing it in.
Exactly. You build a very safe box.
Which logically brings us to when this meticulously boxed-in system actually runs. Now, if you're looking at this from a corporate standpoint, you would naturally assume a highly technical, multi-platform media workflow would be scheduled around optimal server sync times.
Or, algorithmic primetime windows.
Right. But the schedule here is dictated by a surprisingly analog constraint: the weather.
Specifically, the brutal reality of the summer heat.
It is such a fascinating detail to me. The system is split into 2 distinct sessions: evening production and early morning blogging. And the reason for the split is entirely biological.
Yeah, it's so human.
The mentor has their main heavy-duty processing PC in the drawing room. During the cooler months, like autumn through spring, they can comfortably sit in that room and work late into the night.
But during the peak of summer,
that room effectively turns into an oven. It's just too hot.
And the alternative is retreating to an air-conditioned bedroom. But the equipment available in that room is just a low-end laptop with a tiny screen. And if we view this through the Gurukul 2.0 lens of holistic well-being, staring at a small laptop screen for intense, multi-hour evening production requires rapid saccadic eye movements. You blink less. It causes massive, compounded eye strain.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about the physical eye strain part of it.
It's huge. So rather than forcing the human to suffer for the sake of the content, the technology schedule bows to the biological reality. Evening production is simply paused entirely during peak summer.
See, I see so many rigid corporate tech workflows fail completely because they refuse to acknowledge the physical reality of the human beings operating them.
Oh, all the time.
They expect maximum uniform output regardless of whether the room temperature is pushing 90 degrees or if the hardware is literally causing physical pain.
We constantly try to force ourselves into these rigid digital boxes. But here, we see the mentor actively adapting the flow to serve the human life, not the other way around.
It's incredibly refreshing.
And it extends beyond just the heat, too. They heavily utilize the native scheduling tools within Spotify and Facebook. So they do the deep work when it suits their body and environment, the cool evenings. But they let the platforms hold the assets in a vault, releasing them only when the audience naturally wakes up and opens their phones.
So they're not manually hitting publish at 6 in the morning?
Exactly. Let the machines do the waiting.
Okay, so since we are in the cooler months in this version of the workflow, let's unpack the actual mechanics of session 1, the night shift. Because this is where the digital assets are actually constructed.
Right, let's get into the mechanics.
It starts with a surprisingly analog step. One manual file name slug. It's literally just the year, month, day, topic, and keyword. Takes maybe 10 seconds.
Just a completely manual, human-readable anchor.
But from that single anchor, the high-leverage automation begins. 4 specific notebook LM prompts are queued up to run sequentially: an English audio overview, a Telugu audio overview, and then 2 short video explainer teasers, one in English and one in Telugu.
And while the AI is grinding through those generations, the human is freed up to do other things. But once that raw audio is finally generated, we hit the post-processing phase in Audacity.
Yeah, and as an auditor, a massive detail stood out to me here regarding precision. When processing the English audio, the architect applies a 4 to 5 decibel boost, followed by normalization and amplification.
Right.
But when processing the Telugu audio, it only requires normalization. No decibel boost is needed at all.
Which perfectly highlights the acoustic differences in how AI models generate specific languages.
Right. Because AI voice models are predominantly trained on massive English data sets.
Exactly. They naturally compress and smooth out English syllables, which can sometimes result in a quieter, flatter baseline output. But Telugu is a highly phonetic, syllable-timed language. Every consonant and vowel is enunciated with distinct punch and clarity.
Wait, I see. So when the AI renders the Telugu script, the natural amplitude is already peaking.
Yes.
It already has that dynamic punch. So adding a decibel boost would just blow out the speakers. It would cause distortion.
It would sound terrible. That's why it only needs normalization, which just scans the track, finds the loudest peak, and mathematically scales everything else up evenly so the volume is consistent. The architect has literally tuned their ear to the exact frequency of the AI's linguistic bias.
Elite tool mastery is understanding the flaws in the paint you are using, not just the brush.
Oh, that's good.
And crucially, there's a systemic reason this heavy audio processing is done during the night shift. By publishing the finalized audio to Spotify in the evening, they leverage YouTube's auto-synced feature.
Right, because converting audio to a static video for YouTube takes massive server processing time.
Exactly. By doing it at night, that multi-hour progress bar runs while everyone is sleeping.
Letting the servers do the waiting is brilliant. You never want the human bottlenecked by a rendering bar.
Never.
But speaking of tool mastery, there's a very specific UI quirk the architect documented in Notebook LM that fascinated me.
Oh, the video format thing.
Yes. When you tried to generate the video teasers, the default short and cinematic formats are completely hard-coded to English by the developers.
Which is wild.
Right. Even if your prompt screams at the AI to speak Telugu, the generation either fails completely or just stubbornly reverts to English.
And most casual users would hit that wall, assume the tool is broken, and just give up.
But the architect discovered a workaround. They found that the explainer format option is slightly less rigidly coded. By manually selecting explainer from a hidden drop-down menu, you can actually force the system to accept the Telugu prompt.
And documenting that exact drop-down fix in the legacy code is the difference between a system that breaks down every Tuesday and a system that runs like clockwork.
Absolutely.
So the night shift progresses. We have the dual language audio processed and perfected. Now we hit what is arguably the most sophisticated part of the architecture, the unified metadata package.
Prompt number 5.
Prompt number 5.
Yeah.
This is where the system categorizes the content for the algorithms. But the absolute key to this step, the thing that makes it genius, is the sequencing.
Right.
Before prompt 5 is ever executed, both of those newly processed, finalized audio files, the English and the Telugu, must be manually re-uploaded back into the Notebook LM environment as new sources.
Wait, let me trace the logic on that.
Yeah.
By feeding the finalized audio back into the machine, the AI is no longer writing the metadata based on the original raw text notes.
Exactly.
It's writing the SEO summary and the tags based on the final spoken nuance of the audio track it just generated.
You've got it. It is reviewing its own vocal performance to write the description.
That is incredible.
It captures the exact tone, the specific phrasing, and the synthesized flow of the final product, guaranteeing that the metadata perfectly matches the listener's eventual experience.
That is such an incredible feedback loop. And when it generates that metadata, the architect enforces a brutally strict language mandate.
Yes, no mixing allowed.
Right. One single prompt yields 2 entirely distinct separate outputs. A pure English package and a pure Telugu package. Through their own rigorous testing, they found that word-level script, mixing dropping a random English phrase into the middle of a Telugu sentence, is terrible for the audience.
It creates immense cognitive friction.
It does. To a native Telugu reader, script mixing looks like cheap SEO spam. It disrupts the natural mental rhythm of the language. It feels highly inauthentic, so they keep the bodies of text completely pure to their respective languages.
But there is one brilliant, calculated exception to this purity rule.
Oh, the title.
Yeah, and it sits right at the top of the post, the SEO title. The title uses a highly structured 2-part hybrid format. It features a complete natural English phrase, followed by a vertical pipe separator, followed by a complete natural Telugu phrase.
And if we look at that through the Gurukul philosophy, that hybrid title acts as a form of digital hospitality.
Digital hospitality, I love that frame.
It respects the purity of the native language for the actual reading experience in the body, but it builds a bilingual bridge right at the entrance. It signals to both the English-speaking seeker and the Telugu-speaking seeker that they are equally welcome.
And structurally, it ensures the search algorithms can index the content for both demographics simultaneously.
Exactly. It serves the algorithm and the human perfectly.
So the night shift ends, the assets are built, the metadata is flawlessly segregated, and YouTube has spent the entire night syncing the files in the dark while the humans slept.
Perfect.
We wake up, the sun is out, and we enter session 2, the morning shift. Now, building a perfect asset is entirely pointless if the algorithm just buries it. How does a solo creator ensure this content actually survives contact with the open internet?
Well, the morning is strictly reserved for deployment, logging, and legacy archiving. And we see a very deliberate tactical segmentation of platforms here. They utilize bloggers specifically as the home for readers.
Which I have to admit feels almost retro, given how many modern blogging platforms exist today.
It does feel retro, but the rationale is purely functional. Blogger has an incredibly clean, uncluttered document object model.
Oh, right.
It isn't bogged down by heavy JavaScript widgets or aggressive pop-ups, which means it plays flawlessly with the text-to-speech browser extensions that visually impaired readers or just multitasking readers really rely on.
Form following function.
Yeah.
And while Blogger handles the text, Spotify and YouTube are treated strictly as the domains for listeners.
Yes.
But where the strategy becomes truly adversarial, in a necessary way, I think, is how they handle Facebook. They take that short AI-generated video overview we mentioned earlier, and they upload it natively directly to the Facebook page via the Meta Business Suite.
And the strict rule documented in the legacy code is never download the video from YouTube to repost it, and never use a third-party editor like Clipchamp to render it.
Because we are dealing with walled gardens here.
Absolutely.
Meta's 2025 algorithm policy is fiercely protective of its own ecosystem. I mean, their entire revenue model is based on keeping human eyeballs on their feed to serve ads. So if their algorithm detects a YouTube watermark or even metadata hidden in the file from a rival platform's editing software,
it flags the post as unoriginal content.
Instantly. It's a neon exit sign pointing to a competitor's casino. And if you trigger that flag, your reach is permanently throttled. The algorithm just shadow bans the post.
It's ruthless. And to take it a step further, the architect doesn't even put a hyperlink to the full audio broadcast in the main body of the Facebook post.
Wait, really?
Yeah. They hide the outbound YouTube music link down in the first comment.
Because a link in the main post is still an exit sign.
Exactly. By keeping the post body entirely native, just the uploaded video and pure text, the algorithm sees a piece of content that keeps users on Facebook. It rewards that post with reach.
Which, frankly, makes me want to pull my hair out as an auditor. Are creators really forced to play this ridiculous game of algorithmic cat and mouse with trillion-dollar tech monopolies just to share a simple educational audio track?
It's exhausting.
Is this what digital migration has actually come to?
It is a deeply frustrating reality for anyone trying to share knowledge. It is a game. But what the mentor, the Anteriami VA Academy, is teaching here is the concept of algorithmic respect.
Algorithmic respect.
You cannot fight the ocean's currents. If you try to swim straight through them, you will drown. But you can learn to sail them.
Sailing the currents, that is a much healthier way to look at it than just being angry at the water.
By understanding exactly what the algorithm punishes, like outbound links, rival watermarks, and what it rewards, native uploads, clean text, you protect your message. You ensure the wisdom actually survives the journey to reach the seeker.
Which zooms us out to the overarching philosophy driving this entire system. This is really the wisdom seeker's true domain. Beyond the specific platform tactics, what is the core methodology being taught at the Anteriami VA Academy regarding the future of digital work?
The mentor explicitly frames this entire evolution as a transition from a BPO model to a KPO model.
BPO being business process outsourcing.
And KPO being knowledge process outsourcing.
How do those differ in practice for a solo creator? Like, what does that actually look like?
Think of a traditional BPO mindset. It measures success by raw output and keystrokes. It is the digital equivalent of a call center factory line. The goal is keeping your hands on the keyboard for 8 straight hours, grinding through manual repetitive tasks. It glorifies the hustle of exhaustion.
Just blind exertion. Whereas the KPO model...
The KPO model measures success by leverage. It's about deep, strategic thinking, setting up automated doing. It's the difference between manually dialing 1,000 phone numbers versus spending an hour designing a software filter that blocks spam calls so you only ever speak to warm leads. You use your knowledge to process the work, not your brute force.
And we see that perfectly reflected in the changelog of this workflow. Tracing the evolution from version 1 to this current version 7.2, the story isn't about the architect adding more bells, whistles, and complicated software layers.
No, not at all.
It is a story of aggressive, almost ruthless pruning.
They completely amputated the external TurboScribe transcription step. They entirely retired the manual Adobe Podcast quality control pass.
Because they spent their energy engineering the upstream Notebook LM prompts to be so incredibly precise that the downstream manual editing simply wasn't required anymore.
Exactly.
They fixed the water at the source so they didn't have to build a filter at the tap.
That's beautifully put. And there's a specific quote from the architect in the legacy code that I believe needs to be framed on the wall of anyone doing digital work today. They wrote, "A workflow that runs forever unchanged isn't a sign of stability. It's usually a sign nobody looked closely in a while."
I love that quote, though I do have to put the strategic auditor hat on one last time to challenge this philosophy just a bit.
Let's hear it.
Constantly updating a workflow, hitting version 7.2, adjusting for every tiny algorithmic tweak from Meta, rewriting prompts to fix Notebook LM dropdown bugs, doesn't that create its own unique form of administrative fatigue?
It definitely can.
At what point does optimizing the system become a procrastination tactic? At what point does endlessly sharpening the axe get in the way of actually chopping down the tree?
That is the classic trap of hyper-optimization, and it's a very real danger.
Yeah.
But look closely at what the architect is updating in version 7.2.
Okay.
They aren't adding complex new hurdles for the human operator to jump over. They are updating the system specifically to let the machine do more of the waiting. The updates are entirely focused on removing human friction.
That's true.
When they discovered that Telugu format bug, they didn't add a 20-minute manual editing step in Premiere Pro. They found the 1-second drop-down fix to ensure the automation kept flowing uninterrupted.
I see the distinction. They are sharpening the axe so that a single effortless swing brings down the entire tree, rather than swinging a dull axe for 12 exhausting hours just to prove they are working hard.
Exactly. The KPO philosophy isn't about constant change just for the dopamine hit of tweaking software. It is about continuous, mindful adaptation. It requires the self-awareness to observe which steps you don't actually need and the courage to permanently delete them.
So let's pull all of this together and recap the legacy code we've extracted from Project Antaryami today for you, the listener. We've audited a highly evolved system that thrives because it is built on 4 distinct pillars.
4 pillars.
First, designing systems around human biological reality, literally letting the summer heat dictate the production schedule, rather than fighting your own physiology for the sake of output.
Second, algorithmic respect. Understanding the massive walled gardens of Meta and Google and using native video uploads and strategic first comment links to sail those algorithmic currents rather than drowning in them.
Third, dual language authenticity. Enforcing strict linguistic boundaries to avoid the cognitive friction of script mixing, while utilizing that hybrid SEO title as a welcoming front door for both English and Telugu audiences.
And finally, the KPO philosophy of continuous pruning. Treating your daily workflow not as a static, immovable monument, but as a living document that requires regular observation and the aggressive elimination of manual labor.
It is a remarkable blueprint for anyone attempting a digital migration. But as we wrap up this Gurukul session, we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder on your own digital stroll today. We spent this entire time analyzing how this highly advanced, AI-assisted, multi-platform media workflow ultimately had to bow to something as ancient and analog as the temperature of a room.
The summer heat dictated the entire architecture.
So ask yourself this: what other supposedly perfect digital systems in our modern lives, in our corporate workplaces, our remote schools, our daily personal routines, are failing right now simply because they stubbornly refuse to acknowledge the physical, biological reality of the human beings trying to run them?
It is a profound question. True wisdom isn't just knowing how the machine operates. It is knowing when the machine needs to be turned off so the human can open a window and breathe.
Beautifully said. Thank you for joining us for this digital stroll. Take this legacy code, look critically at your own digital workflows, find the friction points, and start pruning. Until next time.